Happy Friday, everyone. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Incheon in Seoul. Let's get started with a look at today's highlights. The construction of 2 nuclear reactors, which are already 30% complete, will be suspended for 3 months due to safety concerns. U.S. Fed Chair Janet Yellen discusses inflation expectations while import restrictions on Korean goods continue to rise amid growing trade protectionism. We take a look at what business news topped the headlines this week. We begin with the temporary shutdown of 2 nuclear reactors in Korea's southeastern city of Ulsan. Now, the shutdown comes as part of the government's efforts to reduce the country's reliance on nuclear power for more cleaner, renewable energy sources. Our Kim Ji-yeon has more.
Board members of the state-run nuclear operator has decided to suspend the construction of 2 nuclear reactors in Korea's southeastern city of Ulsan for 3 months due to safety concerns. The decision was made with all 13 board members present, with 12 of them voting for the suspension and 1 dissenter voting against the move. With the board's decision, a 9-member public debate committee will deliberate during the 3-month suspension period on whether the reactors should be shut down permanently. The Moon administration had already ordered the suspension of the reactors last month as part of its efforts to phase out nuclear power in favor of cleaner, renewable sources. The board decision was originally scheduled for Thursday, but was postponed due to protests by the reactor's construction workers as well as labor union members. Workers fear they will lose their jobs due to this suspension, while union members from the state-run nuclear operator is threatening to sue the board for convening the meeting in secret. The Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power Company estimates the board's decision will affect 12,800 on-site workers, incurring personnel expenses of more than $88 million over a 3-month suspension period. This on top of the $1.4 billion construction cost that has already been injected into the construction of the reactors. A survey of over 1,000 respondents by Gallup Korea shows 41% of respondents were in favor of shutting down the reactors, while 37% said construction must continue, and 22% reserved their opinions on the matter. Kim Ji-yeon, Business Daily.
Korea's import prices fell for the 2nd consecutive month in June due to softening global oil prices. According to data from the Bank of Korea, the country's import price index was seen at 79.8 last month, down 0.9% from May. The benchmark Dubai crude was priced at an average of $46.47 per barrel in June, down by nearly 8.5% on month. Export prices grew at a slower rate in local currency terms, up 4.9% in June from a year earlier, after a 5.1% increase in May. Just 1 day after the U.S. Trade Office informed Seoul that it wants to start the process of amending the KOR's FTA, U.S. President Donald Trump has claimed renegotiations have already started. On his way to France aboard Air Force One, Trump told reporters the U.S. has a bad deal with Korea that is costing his country $40 billion a year. He added rather controversially that Washington and Seoul has already started renegotiating the deal. This is in contrast to the notification from Washington trade officials that it wants to discuss possible amendments to the FTA rather than a renegotiation of the deal. Korea's trade ministry said it will send senior officials to arrange the timing and agenda of the joint meeting requested by U.S. trade officials. The U.S. State Department is reportedly planning to request all countries to provide extensive background information on individuals entering U.S. soil. Countries that fail to comply with the new protocols could face travel sanctions, according to a diplomatic cable obtained by Reuters. The requirements include the issuing of electronic passports and the regular reporting of stolen or lost passports to the International Law Enforcement Agency, Interpol. The cable said the U.S. is adopting the new protocol to ensure visa applicants and other travelers do not pose any terror threats to the U.S. The Korean equity market posted another fresh record high on last trading day of the week. To give us a wrap-up of this week's stock market action, we have our Lee Joo-young joining us on the phone today. Hello, Joo-young.
Good afternoon.
All right, so how did the market perform today and also for the entire week? Can we expect further rallies in the days to come?
Experts agree that the main driver behind the Kospi's rally this week was Fed Chair Janet Yellen's testimony on Wednesday and Thursday. The steady improvement in the global economy and expectations of a gradual rate hike seems to have strengthened risk appetites of foreign investors in the local stock market. As a result, the Kospi ended the day at another record high. At the closing bell, the benchmark Kospi hit 2414.63, up 0.21% from Thursday's close. The tech-heavy Kosdaq also rose 0.22% at 654.11. On the foreign exchange counter, the Korean won strengthened against the greenback at 1,134 won to the dollar. The Kospi is expected to post further gains down the road. This as local companies have been posting better than expected earnings while the benchmark index still remains quite undervalued. The rally is expected to be led by firms in the semiconductor and financial sector in the second half of this year, as well as by those in the materials sector. Some market watchers predict the Kospi to hit the 2350 mark by the end of this month and approach the 2,600 mark by the end of this year.
But this wasn't just a case for Korea, right? How have other Asian markets been performing?
After Yellen's testimony, the U.S. dollar index fell about 0.2%, while other Asian equity markets rose. For one, Hong Kong's Hang Seng gained 1%, while the Shanghai Composite Index went up 0.6%. The Japanese yen and the Taiwanese dollar both rose 0.4% against the dollar.
And the Bank of Japan is expected to hold its two-day monetary policy meeting starting next Wednesday. What's likely to be discussed there?
The BOJ is likely to upgrade its economic growth projections for the current fiscal year and for the next. According to the Nikkei Shimbun, the central bank will raise the forecast by 0.1 to 0.2 percentage points thanks to improving consumption and investment activities. In terms of inflation, though, the Bank of Japan is preparing to revise down its forecast for the two fiscal years due to sluggish price growth in the spring. This has been Lee Joo-young for Business Daily.
With Samsung Electronics estimating record profits in the second quarter, the Lee family that controls Samsung Group have seen their personal fortunes swell by more than $6 billion in just half a year. Local market tracker Jaebol.com says Samsung Group Chairman Lee Gun-hee tops the list of Korea's richest shareholders. The value of his shares has grown by almost 30% since the turn of the year, amounting to some $16.1 billion. Those held by his son, Lee Jae-yong, the vice chairman of the group, rose 24% over the same period at $7.2 billion. The chairman's wife, Hong Na-hee, saw a 40% boost, as did their daughters, Lee Bu-jin, CEO of Hotel Shilla, and Lee Se-hyun, the president of Samsung C&T's fashion division. Korea's franchise industry keeps on expanding, with more than 100 new businesses opening each day. However, the high rate of closures is becoming an issue of concern. Our Elliot Kim has more.
On Wednesday, Korea's consumer watchdog released a report, painting a clearer picture on where the country's franchise industry currently stands. Data from the Korea Fair Trade Mediation Agency showed the number of franchise stores rose by 5.2% to nearly 219,000 in 2015, up from roughly 208,000 in 2014. By industry, restaurants held the largest share at 107,000, followed by the service industry at 67,000 and wholesale and retail trade at 45,000. As of 2015, out of the 474,000 restaurants in the country, more than 1 in 5 were operating under a franchise license. A more detailed breakdown of the composition by business type shows convenience stores taking up the largest share at nearly 31,000, followed by fried chicken restaurants, Korean food restaurants, and foreign language education institutions. A remarkable average of 114 new franchise locations opened daily in 2015, totaling over 40,000 for the year. But on the flip side, 66 existing franchise owners went out of business each day for a total of around 24,000. And while the 23,000 restaurants that opened in that year single-handedly matches the number of closures in all franchise businesses over the same time period, restaurants were also the most prone to failures, with 4,400 closures. The sluggish economy has caused sales to slip as well, with 2015 figures falling 9.8% from 2014, for an average yearly revenue of just $340,000 per business, due to market saturation and sluggish consumer spending. Elliot Kim, Business Daily.
Korea's main air hub, Incheon International Airport, may see a record number of travelers during this year's summer vacation season. On Thursday, Incheon International Airport Corporation estimated some 6.8 million passengers will use the airport between July 15th and August 20th. Now, that's an average of more than 180,000 inbound and outbound travelers a day. The airport operator says it will run shuttle buses, secure additional parking spaces, and extend the operating hours of check-in counters to better deal with the surge in travelers. Many people nowadays get their news through social media services like Facebook and Twitter. In fact, those two have a huge lead in many countries when it comes to news consumption. But here in Korea, the top spot belongs not to a website, but a mobile messaging app. Our Park Hee-jun has more.
Social media offers a round-the-clock stream of news content tailored to the individual interests of billions of users. Among these services in Korea, the most popular source of news isn't Facebook or Twitter, but the mobile messaging app Kakao Talk. That's according to the 2017 digital news report released this week by the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism at the University of Oxford. The survey showed that among 1,000 respondents, about 40% say they use Kakao Talk the most to get their news, relegating Facebook and YouTube to second and third place. Kakao Talk was launched in 2010 as a relatively simple but free text messaging app. It wasn't long before it became a part of everyday life for the overwhelming majority of Koreans. And despite not being a portal website or a news organization, Kakao Talk has far more users than apps from conventional news outlets.
The news section is easily accessible from my friends list, so I use it often.
I use the Kakao News service to get the latest updates on news from other countries.
As you can see, Kakao Talk is popular not only as a mobile messenger, but also as a news provider for its convenience and wide selection of content. Social media growth continues unabated, but how long can this trend last? The answer seems to be, according to the experts, for a long time to come.
Unless a completely new platform can replace social media, this trend is likely to continue. It's also highly unlikely that one of the more traditional platforms would return to become the force it once was. Kakao Talk has a very flexible organizational culture, which is its biggest strength. It's hard to forecast what changes lie ahead, but I believe the company will adapt to them quite well. Unless a new powerful platform appears, Kakao Talk is likely to maintain its dominance for the foreseeable future.
New technologies are giving us ever more interactive ways to get our news. With over 90% of Koreans subscribed, Kakao Talk has used a modern-day necessity, text messaging, to put the latest news at the tip of our fingers, or thumbs, as it were. And as long as we keep chatting away, it seems Kakao Talk as a news service can only keep growing. Park Hee-jun, Business Daily.
Advancements related to so-called the fourth industrial revolution is taking place all around us. From manufacturing to education, the application of robots is becoming increasingly prevalent. And our Incheon tells us more about how smart technology is making inroads into various sectors.
Some 60 million passengers pass through Incheon International Airport every year. With that number set to rise and some high global standards to maintain, South Korea's main gateway is expanding its staff, and their newest employees are quite the attention grabbers.
Roaming around the airport is AirStar, a self-driving robot that answers questions and provides information to passengers by means of a touchscreen monitor and a voice recognition technology.
Where can I charge my smartphone?
Whether you need to charge your phone before boarding or look for a ticketing place. Airstar can locate and take you to the destination, carefully navigating through the crowds using a movement sensor. Developed by Korea's LG Electronics, Airstar is joined by another innovative robot.
이 지도 안에 로봇이 청소해야 되는 영역들이 나오고 있습니다. 특정 영역을 지정을 하면은 로봇이 그쪽으로 이동해서 청소를 하게 됩니다.
I am now cleaning. May I pass you?
We're showcasing 5 robots for cleaning and 5 robots for information guidance for 6 months at the airport as a pilot program. We'll find out what people really need and how robots can better assist them through travelers' feedback, and then we'll be able to enhance the technology.
For Korea to install robotic assistants at its main airport was only a matter of time, as the nation has the highest concentration of industrial robots in the world, with more than 500 multi-purpose bots seen for every 10,000 employees.
Korea uses robot technology in a variety of sectors, like car manufacturing and electronics. Another field is education. Robot-assisted teaching can improve students' creativity and help them become more proactive learners.
In fact, a growing number of schools are jumping on board with the idea of expanding software and IT classes, in line with the government's aim to prep students for the fourth industrial revolution. While not all schools have yet implemented robot-assisted learning, these 10th graders at Mapo High School get to learn through a hands-on approach, thanks to their teacher.
검정색 라인을 따라 움직이려면은 하얀색인지 검정색인지 색깔을 분리하는 게 필요해요. 두 개가 하얀색일 때는 앞으로 가는데 왼쪽이나 오른쪽이 검정색을 만나면 로봇을 그쪽으로 휘도록 만들어주는 거예요. 네.
He's one of the early birds to have realized the need to broaden software education.
Artificial intelligence and the fourth industrial revolution have been making headlines for some time now, so teenagers are naturally interested in the field of software studies. And students can learn better this way because they realize how the information they learn applies to technology by maneuvering the robots themselves.
And for some students, learning about robot software is not limited to the classroom.
I got to study coding and programming at this class, and now with what I've learned, I'm actually making a computer game software with my friend.
Korea is now facing an era when a variety of fields start to depend on robot assistance. An era researchers describe as the beginning stage of the robotic revolution. However, the full potential of what's about to be the new economic and technology frontier is yet to be unlocked.
For a new technology such as robotics to become an industry, manufacturers can't just produce goods according to market demand because there's a lack of understanding of the technology application among customers. Now it's time for the nation to focus more on its marketing strategy and broaden the knowledge of its application in the market.
The global robotics industry is expected to be worth some $135 billion by 2019, almost doubling the amount from 2015. In terms of skill development, experts agree Korea is one of the leading countries in robotic technology. But as the world rapidly takes leaps towards the new industrial revolution, maintaining its stronghold will be another level of challenge. Incheon, Business Daily.
Time now for a look through some of the headlines in the world of global business from this week with our Eunice Kim joining us in the studio today. Hello, Eunice.
Hello.
All right, so investors have been keeping an eye on Fed Chair Janet Yellen's congressional testimony in the past couple of days, and they were emboldened by her cautious tone. So what's fueling the risk appetite here?
Well, June, the main message she seemed to be telegraphing this week is that the Fed is flexible. There had been concerns that the Fed could be moving too quickly on raising interest rates in light of recent softer inflation readings. Case in point, the Fed's preferred inflation gauge, which leaves out volatile food and energy prices, had slowed to 1.4% in the year through May, vis-a-vis 1.8% back in February. Now, before a House committee on Wednesday Wednesday local time, Chair Yellen said the Fed was committed to their 2% target, but keeping a close eye on the readings.
Now, for several months running, we have seen unusually low inflation readings. As I mentioned, there appear to be some special factors that partly account for that. For example, quality-adjusted prices of cell phone plans plunged several months ago, and prescription drug prices also plunged. So some temporary factors appear to be at work.
Temporary factors, she says, signaling the softness may be transitory, a sentiment she reiterated on Thursday before a Senate committee. She also said central bank officials stand ready to adjust policy if inflation continues to show weakness.
So many eyes will settle on inflation data that is due to be released later this Friday in light of Yellen's comments.
That's right. The U.S. Labor Department is set to report on consumer price index for the month of June, a key core inflation data point on Friday morning local time. We'll also see June retail sales and industrial production on Friday. But so far, indicators are painting a positive picture. The number of Americans filing for unemployment benefits fell last week, and producer prices in June unexpectedly rose. So investors are taking the opportunity to exert some bullishness back into the markets.
The market really likes this sweet spot between growth and still not really a lot of inflation. And with Yellen at the helm, we all feel pretty confident she's going to make the right decisions moving forward with the tapering.
Fed officials will meet again at the end of this month, July 25th and 26th, though no rate hike is expected until later in the year. There's also the factor of governance. The Trump administration and the GOP has run into trouble implementing promised policy changes, starting with health care reforms. During her semi-annual monetary policy report, Chair Yellen, whose current term expires in February, did note that fiscal policy uncertainty is, quote, quite high at the moment. She added that healthcare spending is an important aspect of household budgets and that changes there could have an effect on spending on a wide range of goods and services in the economy.
All right, let's turn our eyes to our neighbor China, who's finding itself defending its trade report, which showed that its trade with North Korea had risen 10.5% in the first half of this year.
That's right, double digits there, and it was driven largely by big jumps in exports, big enough to buttress a drop in imports. China customs data Thursday showed Beijing had exported $1.67 billion worth of goods from January through June, an on-year rise of 29%. Imports from North Korea, on the other hand, registered a fall of 13.2% to $880 million. A customs spokesman at a briefing in Beijing said the data reflected normal economic relations with Pyongyang and that is not its current stance. He also underlined that trade did not include items under the United Nations embargo list. For example, he noted coal imports were down 74.5% over the first half compared to the same period last year. China banned the import of North Korean coal back in February. Meanwhile, exporters in South Korea could be feeling the tinge of a trade wall. Import restrictions against Korean goods have exceeded 200 for the first time ever. That's according to the Korea International Trade Association, whose data as of June 30th showed there were 201 cases of restraints or restraints under consideration from a total of 30 countries. Leading the pack, India had 33 such rules or rumblings, followed by 30 from the U.S. and 15 from China. 74% of the restrictions were anti-dumping rules. Steel, metals, and chemical goods made up the vast majority of the targeted goods.
Well, let's hope this doesn't put the brakes on Korean exporters who have been doing quite well recently, right?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you so much for coming in today.
You bet.
And that wraps it up for today and this week. Thanks so much for watching. We'll be back next week with more at the same time, same place for your Business Daily. Until then, goodbye.